Hello, welcome to Media Queen TV. Our topic for today is how to be an influential marketer. And we have one of the best in the industry with us today, the amazing Steve Plummer. Welcome, Steve. So great to have you here. And
thanks, Aldwyn, and so good to see you again.
Thank you. You too. We've known each other for 20 years. We were just working out. Can you believe it? 20 years when I had brown hair back then.
And I think I had more hair and less grey hair.
So this is what happens. The years just fly by. And for those who have not met Steve yet, a little bit about Steve for you before we kick off this great conversation. And we do like to make this interactive too today. So for those joining us on Instagram, hello, John Perry. Good to see you, Paul Costa Music, Isaac, Gen C. And for those on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, X, please feel free to let us know where you're joining us from and what you want to know about marketing today, because we will answer your questions. We like to share what you're up to and what your thoughts are on what we're talking about here today as well. Darlene, good to see you there on Instagram. All right, a bit about Steve now. He is a marketing strategist, a copywriter, and an author based on the Sunshine Coast nowadays. He's a master in the art of marketing strategy and copywriting. He has consulted to and written promotions in more than 60 niches, from startups to major national speaker tours, and even the corporate world, where an ASX-listed top 200 company retained his services for more than 18 months. He's devised strategy and written copy that has produced, in just one client's words, millions and millions of dollars in sales. He's a former high school head of faculty and a deputy principal. He's widely regarded as a gifted and intuitive teacher who loves nothing more than mentoring others. A father of 4 now adult children on the Sunshine Coast. When he's not working, he can be found at the beach or in a quiet space writing poetry. Welcome, Steve. Can't wait to have this conversation with you today, all about marketing. So
Wonderful. Thank you.
You've been a very busy man, 4 children and a deputy principal. How did you go from deputy principal to getting into copywriting?
Yeah, it's a long story. And I suppose the interesting thing, I don't find it that interesting, but people find it interesting when I tell that story. And I guess one of the reasons that I think people find it interesting is that it's a story of change, right? And it's a story of personal growth, and that's really humanity's story in many ways. I guess I'll go back to the start. I followed the script. I worked hard at school. I got good grades. I went to university, got a good job, and then I became unhappy, or then that didn't fulfill me anymore. And I started asking questions. Well, gee whiz, I've been in the school since I was 5 years old. Surely there was something more to life than just being in a school. And I'd spent time out in Western Queensland. I was a head of department. I was a deputy principal, and the higher up I went, it just struck my soul, my spirit, whatever you want to call it, that this isn't for me for the next 20 or 30 years. I guess, and I probably will say too, I probably suppressed that feeling for a long time. I had responsibilities, 4 little kids. We had 4 kids under 5 at one stage. How beautiful. No, it was insane, right? It was just hard work. That's all, nappies and meals and bathing and strapping kids into the car, right? Oh, crazy times. So I think out of fear, I suppressed a lot of what my spirit was telling me. And that was, there is something more to your life than just being in a school from the time you were 5 till the time you are 60 or whenever you retire. And I really wanted to pursue that. I've always loved words and writing, and one of the things that I was doing as well as teaching was I was a freelance journalist, and I just fell into, for the want of a better term, into boxing writing. I was one of Australia's top boxing writers, and I've interviewed everyone from Jeff Fennick, Costa Tszyu, back in the day. So I was always good at that, and I would have gone into journalism, but I had to take about a $20,000 or $30,000 pay cut. And when you've got a mortgage and 4 little kids, that's a pretty hard pill to swallow. And so I I look for other things. And I can distinctly remember the Sunday morning, I was reading an email, and the email went to, as we know in a funnel, I didn't know it at the time, but that's interesting email. I'll click on the email, click on the link, go to a sales page. And it was a sales page inviting me, as it invited everyone else, to a seminar by Ted Nicholas, the late great Ted Nicholas, in Sydney. And it was the Dream Information Publishing Seminar. And I thought, oh, gee, I really want to go to this, but we can't afford it. I'm going to be away from the kids for a weekend. And Jenny, my wife, said, what are you doing in the office, in one of those Sunday morning kind of things? And I just went, oh, I might want to go to this thing. She went, oh, that's weird. You've never said that before. Like, maybe you should go. No, well, I should, but no, don't worry. That suppression of what my spirit was telling me, I think it became quite a pattern for me. And long story short, I eventually went to Sydney. There were maybe 40 people in the room. And I can understand the context of me being in that room, right? I was getting up at 5:30 as a deputy principal, getting home at 6, not having much energy left for the kids or for my relationship. And I was exhausted, earning maybe about 95 grand a year back then, which was okay money. Up the front of the room was a guy who said, oh yeah, I'm a copywriter. I work from home, my own hours. I've got 4 kids and I earn over 6 figures. And my eyes just lit up, right? It was like, man, I need to meet this guy. I mean, they call it stalking now. But I went and harassed him and asked him to teach me everything that he knew. That was Brett Thompson, my second mentor in, and you'll remember Brett.
Yes,
Brett, if you're listening. And I guess the rest is kind of history. And it was really interesting. I sat next to a guy many people in marketing will have heard of, John Gian. From Knowledge Stance. He was in the room. 2 people over was a bald guy from Perth named Mal Emery. It was fascinating how the weave of the universe conspired and the synchronicities to put me in that room to then set me up, for the next phase of my career. And it was a happy day when I resigned from working for the education department and went and worked for myself. I guess that's a story of how I came to be here. The last day I taught was back in, I'll go 2009 from memory. And I haven't been in a school since, except to go to my own kids' things.
Amazing. And I remember you back in those networking days, and Andrew and Daryl Grant, I remember seeing you in a room with them, speaking on their stage at one point. And Brett Thompson, of course, was there, and Mal Emery. Those that have been around 20 years in the personal development business, online marketing industry would remember those days. And this was the very early days of social media, because Facebook only started in 2004. So, things have now so rapidly changed. And of course, the world of AI now, and, everyone thinks they're a copywriter, but I can actually tell quite easily what has been done on ChatGPT nowadays. Interestingly, it seems to spit out a similar kind of, format, I find, even though there's certain prompts people can put in and whatever. But, I think really, AI now has changed the game for a lot of people. However, really, I think when people share authentically from the heart, you can tell from a mile away, and people are going to want more of that, I think, moving forward, as more and more people go to AI and think that they're amazing copywriters. So how have you found this whole journey of the changing face of copywriting, and how people are doing things now as opposed to how they were then? And what are you noticing with the changes and how you're dealing with it?
Yeah, it's a big change for sure. Totally agree with that. And I think on a surface level, actually, I've got mixed feelings about it. Let me say this at a deep level. I am concerned about where AI is going and where that's going to lead humanity. I'm not saying we should avoid it, not use it. I mean, I use it just about every day to do research and look for language patterns and a whole raft of things in my work. But is it preventing me or making it easy for me not to think and not to problem solve and not to connect? And I think that's where, I said the fear that I've got for humanity with it comes from. Is it enhancing what we do, or is it hindering the heart connection that people really need? So I think I've got some fears of it on one end, and not fear, oh, I don't want to do it, but fear of where it might lead. I think that's a big thing. And I think too, because, and this is what I teach people when I teach them about copywriting, we all want quick, fast, and easy. No one wants the long, slow, hard route, right? I mean, that's why is Lotto so popular? I hardly buy a ticket, but I bought a ticket in 150 million. Hey, if someone wants to give me 150 million, I'm happy for that, right? Because everyone wants that, right? And I think that's one of the challenges with AI is it's made it easy for people to write stuff that is, passable, if that's the right word, right way of putting it. And like you said, it's fairly easy to spot, copy that is AI generated. It's flat, it's a bit soulless. Now that may change, and here's the thing to remember, in particular, the way video and images have changed. If you remember 18 months ago, they were terrible. Now you can create a video of someone walking down the street and you wouldn't know that it was AI generated. You can create jingles for for your business in 10 seconds, whereas it would have taken an artist a week to do it. And, you really can't tell much of the difference. Like the thing, and this is probably another one of the problems. It's iterating so fast. What we say today may become totally obsolete tomorrow. So that's another part of the challenge of it. And I think where it's going for someone in the writing space is, for those who don't know good versus mediocre, if it's 1,000 words of a blog, for instance, or just some average sales copy, maybe I don't care, I'll just put it up, kind of thing, because I've got that part of it done. I can just go on to other things. And I think that human-to-human connection that a human writing can produce is and can be and perhaps will be missed. And I think that's a shame for humanity as well.
I think there's definitely pros and cons.
Totally.
Yes, in some ways it will definitely make things 10 times faster in some areas, and in other ways I do believe it is dumbing down society. It's kind of like how Google completes your sentences for you. This is it's all happening, my friends. Now the digital ID is being rolled out and digital currency, and it's just I think in some ways it's about mass control, to be honest. And I think also we have to be careful to question what we're seeing on ChatGPT and to look at alternative search engines as well. Not just Google, because Google is very biased in its opinions as well. So you want to go to alternative search engines as well, looking for content. Look at places like BitChute and Rumble as well to get some alternative views on what you may believe to be true. With everything in the world. So it's definitely interesting times we're moving into. And I remember the early days of digital photography. I came from the film days. I was a photojournalist, qualified in the film days, where we did darkroom developing. We actually had negatives, and it's interesting they're called negatives. But anyway, we had negatives that we used to put through the machine. We used to put through the machines, and it would take quite a while before we saw our photos. And we were very careful with every photo that we took back in the film days, because it was costly back then to do a lot of developing. And, it cost a lot more definitely than digital photography now. And I remember 2005, I was resistant to digital photography, because remember in the beginning, there was a slow reaction time when you take the photo. It wouldn't take the photo you think you were taking, and to take it, say, 1 second later, that shot. And I also thought that, you're never going to get the skin tones that you get in film photography with digital photography. But now look at it, like really, it's insane how far digital photography has come now. It is absolutely phenomenal. And of course, we're only seeing the very start of AI. And so considering that, today we are talking about how to be an influential marketer. So what do you believe that actually means? What does it mean to be an influential marketer in today's day and age?
Can I get to that in a sec? I just want to go back half a step. You mentioned that it's not all good or bad. And I think AI is like a lot of life, right? As in life on this planet, right? We have night and day. We have summer and winter. We can't just expect and look for and crave only one side of things. I think we set ourselves up for misery if we don't accept that when we get up in the morning, there is also going to be a nighttime. And in the warmth of summer, there's going to be coolness of winter. And AI is no different, right? There is a dark and a light side to it. So I think if we accept that and, like you say, be discerning in our use of it, that will put us in a more empowered place than perhaps just blindly accepting whatever comes from it. But I think to answer your question, it's that to influence someone is to connect from your heart to their heart. I think that's at the crux of everything. And I think too that's difficult to do if you're not connected with self, and I know that's a very big statement, but how often are we so much caught in our heads, so tied up in the busyness of the day, and what's our heart really telling us?
Yes, that heart-to-heart connection. And I must say, with my socials, I use a mix of ChatGPT generated content, which I always edit. I never just run with it as it is. I always go through and change it and make it mine, put in my words, and heart generated content. I do a lot of posts just from whatever's coming to my mind. I'll just write about it. And that's something that ChatGPT will never be able to do, is write what's on your mind or what's on your heart right now. And I think that's going to be more and more valuable moving forward to really connect and become an influential marketer. And of course, you've got a book about this topic as well. So could you explain?
I just happened to have one that we prepared earlier here.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
I love
so
it. It's a really chunky book. It's a great size book.
It is,
and thank you for sending me a copy too. I've got one right here as well.
Pleasure.
And great book. Fantastic. And so let us know more about the book. How did that come about? What's in it?
So the book it's very different, and I wanted to do something different because I don't know about anyone else, and I do a lot of reading, right? I've got about 4 or 5 books on the go. I'm an avid reader, a word man. So words, books, right? That's me. And one of the things I've always found, and I've loved just about everything I've read, but one of the things I've found is that a lot of business books are very linear. And what I mean by that, you start at the start, and then you got to work your way all the way to the end, right? And if they're deep concepts, which a lot of them are, because they're really good, sometimes it's hard to remember what came before it. And we're so bombarded with information these days that I wanted something where the busy business owner could just pick it up, learn something from it, and then go ahead and implement it. And if I can just product placement message right here, if I can get the camera in there, is that showing up all right, or is it too bright?
Put it on an angle forward a bit. We might be able to see it. Just
forward. Okay, so there we go. So you can see it's quite an easy read. Like this page, over that side, that's only half a page long. That one's a little bit longer. So entries are a day a page, and as you can see from the product placement image again, as you can see from the headline, it's 366 cracking copywriting, marketing, and mindset ideas, one day at a time. So a lesson per day covering one of those 3 topics. And one of the other things about it, people have said, if it was on Audible, or if it was on if it was an ebook, I'd buy it. And I'm a little bit traditional like this, and I want the book to not sit on a computer, but actually look like that, with it being dog-eared and actually a useful, workable, useful book that's going to be sit there and not just open once. And it is a hard copy, and like you said, it's a chunky book because there's a lesson per day per page. That gives us at least 366 plus an introduction or forward, etc. So it is a meaty book, but small business owners in particular love it. Large business owners are enjoying it as well. There's a reader in the US. He runs a really big agency in the US, and he says it's like an oracle for him. When he's having a problem, he'll just go to the book and he'll just flick it open, close his eyes, flick it open, and read something. And he said that often clears his thinking and helps him move forward. It mightn't be the exact same thing that's on the page, but the thinking on the page will help his thinking to clear things up. So it's got multi-uses. Other people just read it from start to finish, like War and Peace. Other people just flick. When I run a group called the Influential Marketer Success Lab, and we will look at something, unpack it during the session. It's done once a week, and we unpack the lessons in the book. So it can be used in many ways, and people love it because of, I guess, the simplicity and the difference of it.
I love that. And there'll be people wondering why 366 days rather than 365. Is that the leap year
It
days?
is, yeah,
It
because
is,
I didn't know when you were going to buy it, right? If you bought it in the leap year, right,
ah,
you'd still have one there. You wouldn't have a day spare. So yeah, it's
good
366 to
idea.
cover the leap year. Yeah,
Good idea. And then the other 3 years, you've got a bonus one, right? So
yeah,
yeah. So that's
absolutely.
I love that. And that's doing things just a little bit differently too, right? Most people
Mm,
probably would have just put 365 and not thought about the leap year.
mm,
So I like that as a point of difference as well. And the great saying, inch by inch, everything's a cinch. It's not that anyone is born an influential marketer. It is a journey. And as I say with my
yeah.
Mass Media Mastery members too, I always show them an image of a seed being planted and a little seedling coming out because, we have to be gentle with ourselves on this journey, I believe, with marketing, because my background is traditional media, of course, TV, radio, print, and 20 years ago, you get a story in your local paper, and you'd be able to fill your events up. Nowadays that's not the case because people are flooded with information. We've got
Mm.
so much more information coming to us. So how do you stand out amongst the crowd with so much going on in the world of the mass media nowadays? And it is a journey. It is being consistent. What are some of the things that you found have been working really well to get the cut through to be seen, heard, and known amongst all the noise, Steve?
Yeah, I guess there's probably two things. The first thing is more of an internal dialogue thing. Understand that not everything works, and it can be difficult and challenging because we get bombarded in people's news feeds of, hey, one ad that did $5 million in 20 seconds and, the $1 million funnel and da, 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 da. It all comes out right. What they don't tell you is all the rubbish that went before it that got to that one
Yes.
result that they advertise about, right? And
Yes.
I can't remember who it was, but it might have been Brian Kurtz in the US. He said, no one is that good to get it right all the time, right? Doesn't matter who you are, no one is that good. So that's the first thing, right? Understand that this is marketing. There is absolutely no certainty in anything, right? If you want certainty, just stick with death and taxes because there's no certainty in marketing. And literally,
Yes.
what works really well today, for no particular reason, may bomb tomorrow. Right. And the market will tell you what it is now interested in. And that can be really tough, right? Because to put something together and to craft messages and funnel and all that sort of thing, that takes work. It takes effort. It takes time. And for it not to work, and that's why they say, run really hard with your winners, and I'll learn from the ones that don't work so well. So that's the first thing. Understand no one is that good to get it right all the time. I think that's really critical. And when you see other people's winners, know that an awful lot of stuff went on before they found that winner, right? All the time. My stuff included, right?
Yep, absolutely. And even with ads, Facebook ads, Google ads, TikTok ads, Instagram ads, even with that, I'm finding people are spending more and more money to get the cut through, is what I've been noticing over the years. And those who are getting amazing results are spending big money on ads, right? They're spending. So, I mean, if you don't have a massive budget of, 5 figures or 6 figures a month, it's going to be really challenging for you to compete with that, to get the cut through. And so you really need to look then at more organic strategies, what's going to work organically. And it's also moving with the times with the social media. So, for example, we've seen lots of changes with Facebook and Instagram. Of course, Meta now owns Facebook, Instagram, Threads, WhatsApp. Right. And we're seeing some similar things coming across. So like you can, do stories and reels and all sorts of things now in all those platforms. And when you do embrace the new features of these platforms, you are rewarded with more organic cut through. I have noticed, right? And so this is where stories and reels, etc., have become very popular. People doing these, videos, and now so the attention span is even less now because you've only got these stories up for 24 hours with people, and it's just like a constant news feed of like online TV with the social media feeds because all of these platforms want to keep you on their platforms. So there's a whole art form to organic marketing if you're going to be using some of these organic marketing strategies. Now, people follow people, of course, and when we say influential marketer, we're looking at people having influence. So having influence means you're reaching more people or you're having the cut through the people you are reaching. And now this can be a trap too because influential, like they say, if you have over 5,000 followers on social media, you are an influencer. That's what I've heard that's classified influencer now, over 5,000 followers. Okay. Now, a lot of people have over 5,000 followers. And the thing is, even if you have 5 million followers, there's always going to be people who have 50 million followers or 500 million followers, or, and it can be this real trap of sort of people get stuck on this, you've got to have a certain number of followers, or you've got to have a certain number of cut through, whatever it is. And that can become really attached to the figures of what that's going to look like. And there's a great saying in a landmark course I did, says, be committed, not attached. Be committed to it, not attached to how that's going to look, because I guarantee there's going to be a lot more people that are watching your stuff and following you than you actually think they are, because not everyone's going to like your post. Not everyone's going to comment on it. It's not necessarily going to show you accurate figures with your social media either. So what are your thoughts around that, around how people get hung up on the numbers?
Yeah, it's a vanity metric in many respects, isn't it? And it's that old saying of what is it? Vanity versus sanity, as in sales is sanity and friends is vanity. Or friends and likes is vanity. So it's really hard though, right? Because it's such a dopamine hit to get response. Oh, I'm liked. Oh, I'm popular. It is really difficult, right? And so the engineers of it have been really, really clever about what makes humans tick. So understand that's what happens, and be able to, I guess, create some distance between yourself and that instant sugar hit, that dopamine hit. Actually, speaking of dopamine, if I go back a step, Aldwyn, I just want to, you mentioned how to reach people. One of the things I've found is that, and this is sort of a bird's eye view kind of more strategic thing, or at least a principle, is the principle of novelty. Now, novelty is really interesting. The saying of take them to the circus and show them something new. Really interesting phrase. Take them to the circus and show them something new. When novelty is seen by an audience, it affects the happy chemical dopamine in the brain. And dopamine, as you know, is related to the happy chemical from sex, cocaine addiction, and all those sorts of things. And so wherever dopamine can be released by something new and interesting and different, that gets our attention straight away. And so how to get attention more, how to influence more, is how could you show up in a new, different, interesting way compared to everyone else. And I think one of the challenges too of the social media and the saturation with that is there's a sea of sameness out there. And so it is always about finding that point of difference, that point of novelty out there. And you might say, well, how do I do that? Gee whiz, how long's a piece of string? But look at what your market is doing or your competitors are doing, and the zig when others zag, that kind of thing. But that's not the only thing. How can you be different and novel and interesting? Because that will get cut through.
And it will stop the scroll, because a lot of people will scroll 6 times looking at your profile before they sort of make a decision about you. And in the 6 times people are scrolling, does it tell people what you do as well? So this is important to mix this in with you sharing more of yourself as well. Not just, for example, I'm a marketing expert as well, and I don't want to just put constant marketing stuff out there. I want to share more about me as well. And the average person scrolls the height of the Statue of Liberty every day, right? So they're 6 times on your profile, but then other people's profiles and everywhere else, they're scrolling like crazy.
Well, here's another, if I can interrupt you there, here's another bird's eye view principle, is us human beings are so voyeuristic. And I don't mean that in a kinky, weird way, but we are very interested in other people's lives. I don't know why we are, but we're all like that. If that wasn't the case, shows like Maths, Farmer Wants a Wife, all those reality TV shows, Back to Big Brother and all that sort of stuff, right? They would be an absolute flop, but they're not. They are absolute hits. Why? Because other people's lives interest us. We're voyeurs, right? That's just who we are as human beings, right? If there's yelling in the street and the neighbors are fighting, we all just quickly tune in, right? We can't wait to find out what it is. So yeah, I think that's another principle to understand. We're voyeuristic, and so people like seeing other people's lives. And it might be a case of they're comparing themselves to you. It might be a case of they're unhappy and they're looking for a lift or happiness in their life, and so they look at what you're doing. So you're right about that mix. That's really, really important.
Yes, so interesting. I do believe a lot of that is conditioning. You know, when Big Brother got rolled out, that got rolled out all over the world at the same time, right? Massive budget behind Big
Mm,
Brother. And that made it trendy for people to spy on each other's lives in the bedroom, in the bathroom, in the, you know, and they made it sexy almost to look at other people's lives and to develop some kind of interest in that. But also the dramas were being conditioned with all the, you know,
mm.
Sons and Daughters, Days of Our Lives, all the soapies and the dramas that we grew up with, you know, all of those was in effect was like, you know, what drama is going to happen in someone else's life. And we tend to think that other people's lives are more interesting and exciting than
Mm.
our lives are. And, you know, they say you're either watching the news or you're making the news, you know. And so I'm sure a lot of
Or you
people,
don't watch the news.
yeah, yeah, or watching the news feed, right?
Mm,
Watching the
mm,
news feed, or you know, traditional news. A lot of people have, you know, lost faith in traditional media because
mm.
of all the lies and misinformation that are actually happening in the mainstream media, not the alternative media.
So
Despite,
does
you
that
know,
hurt? Does that hurt you? Can I ask you, does that hurt you coming from a journalistic background, that switch?
well, I saw it when I was in the media. I saw
Yeah.
the conditioning and the propaganda and the blasting of certain news stories that were just blanketed everywhere,
Mm,
and how we were asked to get certain angles on stories that weren't there and things like that. There was a lot of
yeah.
it happening at the time when I was in the media. And it's interesting because I, you know, growing up in traditional media, I often looked at other media people and I never really related to them. But what I did love, because I thought a lot of people in the media are fake. I thought it's a lot about ego. It's a lot of people being really fake there. Yet what I loved about the media was its ability to impact masses of people at the one time, to
Mm,
do the story once and you're getting it out to masses of people. And now, particularly through COVID, I have been particularly passionate about helping to share more truth and good news in the media,
mm,
because I have seen so many lies and so many what I consider lies from my research, and do your own research, of course. But, you know, we've been told all sorts of things through the mass media that people have believed to be true that have had very big detrimental effects on people's health, mental health particularly. We've had
mm.
4 times the suicide rates, etc. So yes, it's been interesting to witness the way the media has gone, and I haven't liked to see all the negative media over the years. You know, 98% of negative media, it's the odd good news story that we go, oh, there's a good news story in the mainstream media. And, you know, nowadays, thank goodness, we have this mass media world where people are sharing their good news, you know. And I started the Good News Day, the Global Good News Challenge, all as ways to help people shift the way that we do news, even though we tend to be attracted to all the negativity because of that's how we've been conditioned. And if you want to see more about that, watch the Out of Shadows documentary. That'll show you how we've been conditioned through the education system and through the mainstream media, how we have been brainwashed and we have been, you know, taught to, you know, get a job, be a good citizen, you know, do as you're told, you know, pay your taxes, and then eventually you might be able to get some super if the government hasn't taken all your super by that stage. You know, the agenda is you will own nothing and you'll be happy. That's basically the agenda that I believe from my research, from what I've seen. However, you know, I'd love to believe that the government and that people in power behind, you know, behind the banking system and all that, they actually do really care about us. I'd love to think that. However, you know, from my research, there's a whole lot of other things going on. There's a lot of smoke and mirrors, and back to what we're saying about Big Brother, this conditioning to have this fascination with other people's lives, and you know, we do have a fascination with other people's lives, and the question to ask is, where does that come from, and why is that? Why do we have such voyeurism? What is going on there? What do you think about that, Steve?
Yeah, I think it's part of our desire for connection, you know, and the fact that we are locked into that and respond to that. I think it gets back to our. I mean, it sounds like a bit of a contradiction compared to that, for the want of a better term, that negative narrative that you spoke about. But I think the other side of that is there's a desire for humans to connect more, and so, you know, if someone calls for help, most people are going to respond to that, right? And even just in a copywriting thing, in an email, for instance, is, you know, a really good subject line is, you know, can you help me, or I'd love your help, or something like, you know, because one, people want to help, but two, there's some people that will click on that because they want to find out what drama is going on in your life, right? But that's a really good email subject line, right? Look, I think, you know, because human beings are very complex, right? We're a skin bag of emotions, and who knows what's going on with all of those emotions at any one point. And like you said, all of the external influences that bombard us, it's very easy to get out of the heart space and get trapped in the head and the narrative of the head. So I think there is a part of that is about human connection and a desire to connect with other people and do good for and with other people. I think that's still sometimes it doesn't seem like that, but I think that's still very much, maybe that's my hope. That's my naivety. That's my hope of hope for humanity, at least.
Well, yeah, you make a good point there, because as human beings too, we're designed to be part of a pack. We're designed to be in the group, right? And if you look back in the caveman days or back in the old days, the men would go out hunting, the women go pick the berries, and then they'd all come back and they'd feast together and they'd go around the fire and they'd dance and all of that sort of thing back in the day, right? So essentially, we're not designed to be on our own in the world, because that's not safe, right? If you're out in the jungle, it's not safe to be on your own, because you could get attacked by predators, right? If you look at it, that is a very instinctive thing for people to want that connection. So that's really interesting. So what is it in marketing that gives people that connection factor?
You could start at a very, I was going to say surface level, but it's probably not that. It's just a start of calling out who you want to attract. Attention nurses sick of shift work. Right, that's going to get attention of a particular subgroup, a herd, if you like. That's a way of starting that connection. One of the things I do a lot of these days with the help of AI is I look at testimonials and plug them into AI and ask it to give me the emotional patterns within those testimonials, right? And that spits out some really interesting stuff. And I can then use those words in headlines, subheads, and in the copy, or the email sequences, whatever it might be. So looking for those points of connection and those points of herd mentality, if you like, can be very powerful to spreading your influence, or to spreading the influence to help more people. But yeah, certainly calling out. I mean, it sounds very basic and obvious, but we are herd creatures. The fastest, if there's a crowd of people there, the fastest way to get someone's attention is to call their name. Hey, John. Hey, Steve. Hey, Mary. They'll turn around, right? Now, if you don't know anyone's name, the next best way of getting their attention is by calling out the group that they identify with. Hey, nurses. Hey, tradespeople. Hey, doctors. Hey, investors. Whatever it might be. So those are some ways of getting attention, and that's I guess a bit of a surface level. But I'd encourage people to think about that, because that connection, that identifier, is really important to us as human beings. Our identity is important to us. And if you've got a particular solution for a particular group, and you speak to them in the language that they identify with, starting with who they are, their identity, that can be a good point of connection.
Yes, I love that, the relatability and that heart-to-heart sharing from the heart. Now, about a month ago, I came back from the Philippines and I got very sick, right? I was in bed for about a week and I had this big blister on my lip, and I was really burnt from being in the sun for 2 days out on an island trip and the mountains of the Philippines, etc. Came back and went into this big dark hole. Now, it's interesting, this one day, I was about to do a messenger. Someone called me on Messenger, who I always do video calls with normally. However, this particular day I thought, oh no, I can't show my face today. I've got blisters. I look awful. I feel crap. I cannot show my face. So I did an audio call, and they actually questioned me. They said, oh, why aren't you doing a video call? And I said, oh no, I have no makeup. I look like crap. I've got blisters. I felt like absolute crap. And then after the call, I just thought to myself, why wouldn't I show my face right then? Why wouldn't I just be proud of how I am and who I am in that moment? And so I actually did a post on socials about it. And I did this photo of myself looking like crap. And in fact, I'd been crying that day. I just felt like absolute crap. And I actually did a whole post about, isn't it interesting? A lot of branding experts, etc., will say, you have to dress in certain colors and you have to look a certain way. You've always got to, show up a certain way to represent your brand. And now I look back at the stats of that post, sharing about how, we've got this thing in social media where everyone just looks happy all the time, and we don't show those photos of us looking like absolute crap, I guess, looking like ourselves. And a lot of people said, oh, you're still beautiful, Aldwyn, which was really lovely. However, I looked at myself and thought, oh, gee, having a big blister on my face and peeling and, it's not the best look, right? It's not the best look. However, the fact of the matter is, no matter how you look on the surface, on the outside, it is coming back to that heart-to-heart connection. You're still breathing. You still got a heart. You still got a fully functioning body, even if you may not look exactly like you'd like to be looking in that moment. Why not still share from the heart? So I did this post about it, sharing exactly what I'm sharing here, is that I didn't want to show myself on camera, and how, you know, I believe it's important that we do share these more vulnerable moments in our lives. And that post, the stats on that post on Instagram blew me away. 500% more views on that post, where I felt that I looked like absolute crap, right? Well, not looking, you know, as vibrant as I do now, because I felt like crap at the time too. 500% more views. Isn't that interesting when you look at the stats around this?
Yeah, I think there's multi-facets to that, right? One might have been that voyeuristic thing. Oh, why is Aldwyn not looking like she normally does? So I'm going to look at that more, right? I think that's one part of it. The other part of it is that what we think other people see is very different to what other people see, right? So you were going, oh, I don't want to show myself because of X, Y, and Z, whereas all people saw was Aldwyn, right? That was it. People just saw Aldwyn there, and they didn't worry about the hair, the makeup, or anything like that. They saw, I guess, and they felt, you know, because here's the thing, right? As distracted, as unawakened, as whatever you want to say it, as humans can be, we also have this innate intelligence. We don't always follow it. We don't always pay attention to it, but there is a feeling that we get. And oftentimes that will override the head saying all those things, right? But that feeling of how you turn up and how you show up, rather, and the authenticity, people still pick up on that and feel that. And that often is more important to them as opposed to the perfect, you know, selfie worthy, you know, Instagram worthy kind of, you know, falseness that drives a lot of social media. So I think it was a combination of a couple of things. It was your authenticity, and people, it's almost like oh, thank God, I feel like crap today as well. You know, like this. Yeah. I think there's very much a part of, oh, thank goodness I can relax a little bit and not have to be perfect, right? And
yes,
there's a certain number of personality types, not you and I, other people only, who have this achiever syndrome thing going on, where we only feel good about ourselves if we're doing wonderful things. You know, and so like I said, multi-layers in all of that. And so I don't think it's one thing. I think it was a combination of a number of things. But certainly that authenticity, my feel about that, and I've got no data to back it up, but my feel about that is that they were just happy to see the authentic Aldwyn turn up and speak from the heart. I think that's personally, to me, that would be my guess as to what did it, but there were other influences as well.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. A lot of people actually commented, oh, I feel like crap too. I've been feeling sick. And it actually is exactly what you said. A lot of people then opened up about how they felt and even shared their crappy photos under the post as well. I say crappy photos, you know, the photos where we, you know, we don't look as, you know, polished, maybe polished is the word, right?
Yes.
You know,
well, it gave them permission to be real because you were real.
Yeah.
It almost gave them permission to be real as well, or for it to be okay to be real.
Yes.
And which in itself is also an interesting, I guess, social comment on humanity. And why do we need someone's permission just to be real, to be ourselves, to show up who we are? And, you know, you teach most what you need to hear yourself. So maybe I need to examine that within me as well.
Yes. And also I think here, noticing the conversations that we have in our own head, because in my head it was like, oh no, I can't show my face like this. And then I kind of caught myself and I'm like, what am I doing here? You know, we have Total Truth Show. This is about speaking your truth, right? I'm all about a stand for truth and good news, you know, and what's the truth here? The truth here is that you are a miracle by birth. All of us are, right?
Yeah.
And however we show up is how we show up. I mean, I look at Nick Vujicic, right? Nick Vujicic, no arms, no legs, and he's one of the most inspiring speakers I've ever seen. And I think if Nick Vujicic can show up as an amazing man who's actually had 4 times, I saw him on a summit recently online, he said 4 times he's had major depression and wanted to end his life. However, he keeps on going, you know, and this is the thing, is this roller coaster ride of life that we have. And we do want to feel that, hey, it's okay sometimes to feel like crap. It's okay to sometimes be sick. You know, it's okay sometimes to just sleep if you want to sleep, or, you know, whatever it is. It's okay to show up as you, however you're feeling in that moment. And as you say, authenticity is where it's at. And fact, I was speaking at a modern media conference in LA a few years ago, and they actually asked me back then, I was in a panel on stage in front of hundreds of people, and they said, what do you think the future of media is? And I said, authenticity, way back then, right? Authenticity. And I think even more so now as we move into this fast-moving AI world, even more so we're going to want that authenticity. We're going to want to see that in your posts so you can become an influential marketer, because that's where you really connect, that relatability factor. And even if no one gets what you're saying, at least you're sharing from the heart, you're sharing your truth in that moment. Some people will get it, some people won't. It doesn't matter. We all have our judgments. However, give yourself permission to just be you and show up however you want to show up in the moment and share what's on your mind or your heart.
Yeah, I've got this saying that the gurus are always right, except when they're wrong, right?
Yeah.
and look, a really good example of that. And it's the same thing in marketing. This type of headline always works, except when it doesn't. This type of post always gets a good response, except when it doesn't. And it's like that. You win the morning, win the day. You've got to get up at 4 a.m. and get to the gym and do your meditation and your cacao and all those sorts of, all of those things that work for some people. But what if your biorhythms mean that you are more productive in the afternoon? And all getting up at 4 a.m. does is exhaust you for the rest of the day, right? Like, I think it's very easy to give over our sovereignty, our power, our individuality, if you like, to a guru who says, no, since I started doing this, X, Y, Z has happened, and they sell the dream of it has happened, blah, 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 blah. But maybe that won't work for you, because the guru is always right, except when they're not, right? So, yeah, there's a little tidbit to, I guess, just to have that little one in your back pocket. The next time you see a guru saying something, well, is that going to work for me? Is that, be discerning about what you take on board, because the 4 a.m. start ain't going to work for everyone. I'm not saying it's wrong, right? It works for some people really well, and good on them.
Yes. As well as the 4-hour work week, right? That might work for some people, maybe Tim Ferriss alone, but it might work. I don't know who does a 4-hour work week. If you love what you do, why would you just do 4 hours of it?
I mean, look, I've worked with a lot of very successful people. I didn't see one 4-hour work week. I've got to say, maybe they're all doing it wrong. I don't know, but I didn't see one millionaire, multimillionaire doing a 4-day week, or 4-hour work day rather. 4-hour work week. Yeah.
Same.
Yeah.
Same. In fact, a lot of them will do like 16-hour days, ridiculous hours, right? And, I mean, even if you have a massive team, I mean, they say, look at Richard Branson, he runs 60 companies or whatever it is. Well, I mean, maybe it is possible to actually have the 4-hour work week, but surely if Richard Branson loved what he did, then, surely he'd be doing it. You think more than 4 hours of whatever that involves, whether it's networking, whether it's team meetings, whether it's, even if you're managing a team, you still need to show up and oversee things, right? Surely that takes more than 4 hours a week. But anyway, maybe we all need to read that book. But you see, it's a good it's a good title. It's an interesting copywriting title, isn't it? Because it makes us question, would you really do a 4-hour week? And what would that look like? And would you want to do a 4-hour week, or would you just be really bored, and would you sort of want to retire? And then if you retire, you might die soon if you've got nothing you're passionate about anyway. So, it's,
well, it's a great example of a headline, right? Remember, the only job of a headline is to stop someone in their tracks and get them to read the rest. It's not to sell anything. It's not to convert anyone. It's to stop them and get them to read on. We forget a lot of that, right? The only purpose of it, stop them and get them to read more. So it's a really good point you make. Yeah.
Which is the swear factor, the titles where they have the F-bomb in there, or, what Tony Robbins does is he swears often to stop people and to change state and to, get people out of where they're at. So, very, very interesting. So with your marketing journey there, you've done a lot of copywriting, etc. What have you noticed that's working better now, say, than it was 10 years ago? Or, what are you finding that more people are wanting with their content now, apart from what we've already mentioned?
Yeah, there's a lot of... Well, actually, one thing I'll tell you is that everyone claims it to be dead, but direct mail, offline stuff still works really, really well. That can often be a better return on investment than a lot of the online stuff. I'm not saying that it's always going to outperform, but, mailboxes are very empty these days. And so a well-constructed direct mail letter, direct mail package, a really good brochure, put in a letterbox, or all that old-fashioned stuff, it still works really well. And it's very much neglected, mostly because people don't know how to do it, because it's we're doing so much online stuff now. It's almost a lost art. So I think that's a really important one. And again, it's about knowing your numbers. If you've got good margins in it, yes, it takes a bit longer. It's a bit more expensive generally to produce and put it out there and so forth. But it can still get some really good results. So that's one thing to keep in mind if your business is has a reasonably priced product and you have good margins in it. Look, I think let me put it this way: you've still got to do your work with your headline, right? I mean, there's the old, the Jerry Maguire movie, and you would have seen it, that Tom Cruise was in, he was the football agent, and he took with him his secretary, Renee Zellweger, and, they went off on their own adventure and they had a bit of a split, and Tom was off doing his agent thing. He came home, and in the house was Renee Zellweger and her sister and so forth, and a few friends sitting around bitching about men. As he comes in the door, they all stop and look at him. Renee Zellweger walks out of the kitchen all stunned, and he says, you complete me, and all that beautiful romantic line in the movie. And she says, shut up, you had me at hello. And yes. It's corny, it's romantic, but it's also a really good thing to remember about headlines. The first line, your headline, whether it be an email subject line and your first line of copy, whether it be online or offline, that is still key, right? Because if it's over if you don't get them at hello. And so I think that's massive for people not to forget. We can get caught up in the tech and the algorithms and all those sorts of things, but if you've got to get them at hello. Don't get them at hello, it means nothing. So that's a really important one.
Yeah, that's massive, because a lot of people won't spend more than 3 seconds looking at your stuff or looking at your website, right? They'll just have a quick look, and if you don't get their attention, don't get them at hello, or they're off to the next thing, right? This very short attention span, ADHD world we're living in at the moment. It's become like that. People have got such short attention spans, and you really have to get their attention. You have to be able to stop the scroll and do something really different. And you don't need to, flash your bums and your boobs, although a lot of young girls are doing that on Instagram and getting amazing results. However, it doesn't need to turn into a sex show, right? So, it's probably
it's not going to work for me either. So, so you've got to find other ways, right?
Absolutely. And I love what you say about direct mail. And I think that's also becoming even more popular now, because so much is being done online, and so many people spend hours and hours on Zoom calls and online. Like, some days I'm 12, 16 hours just on the computer. So I really love to just get out. In fact, interestingly today, I went out to a local cafe called Cafe Catalina here at Southport. I was on the Broadwater, and I had some beautiful, healthy lunch and coffee, and just sat there, and I read a magazine, and I was reading all about this guy who was doing great things with the environment, and he was a travel writer and traveling the world, getting sponsored to have an amazing adventure-filled life. And I love just sitting there in the sun, reading this magazine, feeding the pigeon some food, some bits of quinoa over to the pigeon, connecting with the pigeon, connecting with nature, being out in the sun. It was just fantastic. And I really, as I was reading this magazine today, I thought, oh my gosh, I really miss reading a magazine, and this is the thing, how many e-magazines, how many, e-books, etc. online. And it's so nice to actually, even, books, I think are coming back a lot more too. Books, magazines, cards, sending, nice cards to people, gifts. I think people just love it. So how can we?
Because it doesn't happen, right? It doesn't happen much. And reflecting on what you said there, Aldwyn, too, is that what you were talking about was a tactile experience, feeding the pigeons, reading a magazine, right? Us human beings are tactile human beings, right? Not just visual. We're tactile with movement and being able to fold something back. Interestingly as well, I saw some data out of the US, so it was several months ago now, but there was a study done of a marketing campaign using direct mail with Gen Z or Gen Z. Now, if you had have asked me, I would have gone, oh, don't bother, it's not going to work. But they got a really good response by sending catalogs in the mail. The catalogs or sales material in the mail had a QR code which took them to a coupon, obviously back online, and then they used the coupon to get a bargain. And so, don't use it with Gen Z, but I was wrong, right? that worked. It was worth a test, and that company did really, really well with the test, even to Gen Z. Yeah. So it's, you know, we are human beings, and human beings are like tactile things. We just do. Like, nothing's changed.
Yes, and it's that constant test and measure in this ever-changing
Yeah.
world of mass media, how to be an influential marketer. Now, for those joining us, I see a few more have joined us there on Instagram. We've got Frank Burnt here, Laura Fernanda, Robert Mull, good to see you, Darlene Geiger. And for those on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, X, what are your thoughts on this topic? How do you become an influential marketer? What does that mean to you? And what do you think about this conversation so far? Love to hear your comments, or if you have any questions, pop them in the chat. We like to make this interactive. So, Steve, back to being an influential marketer. Well, the fact is, look, we're influencing people every day, whether we realize it or not. Okay. And the first person I think we need to influence is ourselves every day. You know, I think coming back to love, it's either fear or love with AI, with everything. It's fear or love where we're coming from. And I think if we come from a space of love with everything we do and loving ourselves, then we're going to show up as our best selves, because we know that hurt people hurt people. And if you want to be an influential marketer or an influential person in general, and you want to attract people into your life, it's important to have that self-love and that care factor, to be kind, I believe, and to treat others as you like to be treated. Whereas when you're nasty to others, usually it's a sign that you're being nasty to yourself. And what you're going to do is you're going to repel people, which means you will not be an influential marketer. So I think a lot of this comes down to actually our state of being. Can you speak into that, please, Steve? How important is that to actually have self-love in this whole journey?
Oh, it's crucial, right? Because how, like you said, how you show up in the world from your heart space influences everything. People mightn't say it, they mightn't articulate it, but they will feel it on some level. So I think from a macro level, what you said is 100% true. If anyone's done any training with me, they will have heard me use this phrase: words are spells. Ooh, that's really woo-woo. Words are spells, but it's true. You think about it. So and here's my challenge to anyone with that: what words are you saying to yourself continually in your mind? You know, so what are you spelling into your life with the words that you say to yourself? Because a word sparks a thought sparks an emotion. That creates our state. So, you know, if we are truthful and coming from our heart, that starts really with how we treat ourselves. And, you know, you think about that as well. If you say to a child, you know, you're meaningless, you're nothing, you're worthless, you know, you're not going to amount to anything in your life, don't you spell that into their life, what's going to happen? There's a pretty good chance that that's going to be self-fulfilling. And I think most of us know that and don't pay attention to that. Yet, do we all do that to ourselves? You know, and so here's my challenge to everyone listening: what are you spelling into your life with the words that you use to yourself? Really interesting question, right?
Yes, it is. Whether we're conscious of it or not, they're either going to be
100%.
positive or they're going to be negative spells. And I hear many people saying, "Oh, you're such an idiot," or you know, like say this kind of stuff to themselves. And I say, "Hey, stop calling yourself an idiot. You know, you're amazing." You know, and so
you idiot, the third time today. Gosh, I can't get anything right.
Yeah.
What's that going to produce, right?
Yeah, exactly. How's your day going to go from there? You know, people say, I got off on the wrong side of the bed. Well, maybe you get off on the wrong side of the bed every day, because that's just how you do life. And this is the thing: out of the 60,000 thoughts we have a day, you know, 98% are the same as yesterday, and 80% are negative for most people. Like, that's a lot of thoughts to process, 60,000 thoughts. And so really half the thing, I think, is just getting conscious where we've been unconscious, and not making ourselves wrong about it, but just going, okay, is that serving me or is that not serving me? Is that the kind of life I want to lead, or is that, you know, is that not the kind of life I want to lead? And if you want to be an influential marketer, then, you know, maybe it's time to perhaps look at how you can influence yourself in a more positive direction. And you know, what are your Yeah. What are your goals, right? What are your goals? Because if you don't know where you're going, then any road will take you anywhere, right? So how do you work with clients there, Steve, to really solidify their goals and to get them really clear on their marketing journey?
If I could just go back a step before I get to that, Aldwyn, you mentioned about being self-aware. I actually think there's 3 steps to any change process, right? It's awareness. That's number one. If you don't have awareness, well, you don't know, right? I'm an idiot. Oh, well, that's just my life. That's how I roll, right? But as soon as someone says, well, what, you know, you're actually creating your world by your thoughts. Oh, suddenly I'm aware. The second part of that is you then go manual. You know, we're always on automatic or autopilot and going through our day. What if we use the gear shift lever and go manual. And what I mean by that is you catch yourself, oh, there's another negative thought. Right? That's the second thing. The third thing is then change it. Oh, I'm an idiot. Oh, catch myself. Okay, no, that's not serving me. How can I change it? What would I do? Is it as simple as a mantra of, clear my mind viruses, clear mind viruses? Oh, that'll change your vibration instantly. So, I think that's really important. If you're going to influence anyone, it's got to start with you influencing yourself first, because how you show up internally comes out how you show up externally. And the old fake it till you make it, well, that kind of works, but there's one problem with it. There's that word fake in there, right? So yeah, if you're not showing up authentically, it's really hard to influence others on any sort of scale, I believe.
Yeah, I love that. I just want to say something around that now, because
okay.
the 3 steps to change. It's interesting. I really love your analogy there. And I heard Ben Harvey from Authentic Education years ago. He said there's 3 steps to change, and this was his 3 steps to change, right? And actually, the first one was awareness as well. Exactly like you said, it was awareness. I thought you were actually going to say his 3, or the 3 that you mentioned, but you actually said 2 different ones. So his one was awareness, and then the second one was acceptance. So just accepting it is as it is as it isn't, without making yourself wrong about it. Awareness, then acceptance. And the third one, he said, was appreciation. If you can get to appreciation and look at everything in your life as a learning and as a growing experience, then you're not going to be the victim of your circumstances. And I really love that analogy as well. Awareness, acceptance, and appreciation. Back to you.
Yeah, that's nice. And I think for me, the key thing is that no judgment. Because if you get to step 2 and go, oh, there I go again, I can never get this right. Yes. All you've done is perpetuate what the thing was, right? So to me, it's more about, without judgment, going, oh, there's that thought again, or that word again, or that pattern again. Okay, I can change it. So it doesn't help you if you just go back into that state, because that also keeps you as a victim as well, and that you're powerless when that's the case.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I love that. So what else does it take to be an influential marketer nowadays?
Yeah, so you asked about working with clients, how do I work with them to to help them grow their influence? It always starts with who their market is. It's not about the business, it's not about what they've got to sell, it's about who the market is and how they can reach them in effective ways. And, if I work with a bigger business targeting CEOs, we're not doing a lot of social media stuff, because a CEO isn't sitting there scrolling through, look at the cat video, right? That just doesn't happen. So there are other ways of reaching different markets. So you've got to be aware of your who and how they show up in the world and what their day is like. That's really, really important, because it's not, marketing is not a one-size-fits-all thing. That's why there's many different agencies. There's, SEO agencies, there's, social media agencies, and because it's different horses for different courses. So being really clear about that is really important. And I think we haven't really spoken about this, the sales side of it. I think it's really important to be really clear on the offer. What makes a strong offer, right? Because sure, your headline's going to get the attention, but if it's going to go anywhere, the offer has to be really strong. And I've got a little story about what makes a really good offer that comes from one of the best telemarketers that I've ever had the pleasure and the annoyance of having. Because I work from home, right? Jenny goes out to work. One of my jobs was to get the carpet cleaning and the pest control done. And yep, I'll get to it. You don't have to nag me every 6 months, that kind of thing, right? And there was, I don't know how she got my number, but there was a telemarketer who, no. And she said, can I ring you back in a month? Yeah, whatever. Anyway, almost to the day, about 3 months in a row, she got me. And I wrote down a date in my diary at one point to the day she rang me, right? And she was so good. She said, and it was like, oh, yeah, rightio. Because I write these scripts, right? So she's, look, we've got trucks in the area. If we come around today, we give you 4 rooms, and for the price of, we'll give you 5 rooms for the price of 4. That's a saving of $122 or whatever it was. And look, while we're there, because we're there, if you need pest control done, house your size is normally X. We can give that to you for $150 less. So if you combine the 2 of them, all you're paying is this, and you're saving this. Now, would you like us to help you out today? And, oh, all right. I caved in, right? Now, here's the thing, though, right? Here's the thing. I mean, I knew what was happening because I write this stuff every day. However, when Jenny got home that day, who was the hero of the house? Because, absolutely. I got the jobs done, but I also saved us X however many dollars it was, right? And the really interesting part of that was this telemarketer was really good. And after I'd put the phone down going, how did that kind of happen to me? Because I write these scripts all the time, right? I reflected on that, and I realized that a really good offer has 2 key things. Number one, it pushes the button that every single human being on this planet wants a bargain. Every one of us, right? If we can not pay full price, we feel good about paying whatever the money is, right? True. So number one, everyone wants a bargain. And the second thing, the second part of it is that everyone wants to feel special. And that's often missed. And so her languaging around, look, because we've been talking for a while, look, I can actually do that for whatever. She said, oh, look, I won't tell the boss, but I can knock another $50 off if that helps, just because, I've rung you 4 or 5 times. And so in influencing your market, where can you follow those 2 principles of everyone wanting a bargain and everyone wanting to feel special? And I've been working with clients, over a couple of years with this, and whenever we've been able to nail that really effectively and authentically, results have improved. It's just one of those hardwired things. I want a bargain, Aldwyn. I want to be able to say, or to myself as well, but to either the significant other, or let's face it, anyone else who would listen to me over a coffee or a beer or whatever it might be, I want to say what a great wheeler and dealer was. Oh, I saved $150 on that, or whatever it is, right? If we can, in our marketing, if we want to influence more people, meet them where they are at, and they are like me, they want a bargain and they want to feel special. So I think that's a really important one if we're going to, and obviously when we're selling something, we're helping someone at a deeper level. And so if you can, in what you're selling, do those 2 things, there's an influence that is growing and growing, and more people being helped. And more people being helped. It's not about being, bumping prices up to knock money off just to game the system, as it were. But if you can genuinely do that within your business and your market, you generally have much better results. So it's a really interesting one. I knew what she was doing, but I couldn't resist because of those 2 forces. And I made sure Jenny found out, right, that I had saved us $150, right?
Yes, the irresistible offer that we see so often in webinars. It works, right? Where, it's $10,000 and then you end up getting it for $2,000 or whatever with 3 bonuses, money back guarantee and all. Like, it just becomes a no-brainer. And that's the thing. How can you present a no-brainer offer? It doesn't mean being the cheapest in the market, but it's how can you show the value of what you give? And if people will happily invest 10 grand if they're going to make 100 grand. So if you can show that correlation of how you can help make people money with what you're delivering, then that's the quickest way to really get the sale, right?
Yeah, I'll push back a little bit on that. I think a lot of that, hey, here's a $50,000 thing for $500. I think that's old school, that hard closing kind of thing, run to the back of the room with a credit card. I don't think that works as well anymore. But if you can genuinely make people, if people can genuinely think that they're getting a bargain, and that you've helped them feel special in some way within that sales process, that's a much smoother thing rather than just that. I mean, it's a very similar thing. I understand where you're coming from, but I also think that's the old way of doing things. That worked really, really well in the past, because Aldwyn, you and I have been in many, many rooms, right, where that happened, and it worked really, really well. But I think that was more pushy, whereas this is more meeting people where they're at. If there's I know it's a small distinction, but I think there is a distinction there.
Yes, it's building relationships. It's interesting because I'm consistently doing a lot of webinars and working with all sorts of mentors. And some people are doing this thing where, book a call with me and we can chat about what the best way is forward for you. Now, I've actually tried both. Now, recently I did a webinar called How to Build a Global Brand. And I did a soft close at the end where I basically said, look, this is the ways you can work with me. Let's, book a call, let's chat. And I had a whole lot of people saying it was amazing. However, I had very few taking action and actually going the next step. Whereas when I've done webinars, I did webinars for years, how to gain $1 million worth of free publicity, and I would present the no-brainer offer, a lot more people said yes. And when they say yes, they're going to get the transformation. If they don't say yes, they will put things off and put things off. So sometimes I think there's a balance between the sort of the pushy thing, but also I think we need to give a bit of urgency around doing it now. Otherwise, people will just put it off and put it off and put it off, and then they'll just never do it. And then you'll never be able to transform their lives with whatever you're offering if you don't make it a really enticing offer in a gentle, not too pushy steak knives way, if you know what I mean. So I think there's a balance.
Absolutely. I agree with you. And to give the full story of the telemarketer, the pest control carpet cleaning, I did have to make a decision that day, right? There was a little bit of that urgency there. And you're right, to get people off the fence, you still have to do that. I mean, FOMO is huge, right? That fear of missing out. That's another human trait. It's I totally, I'm not saying you don't have a box for them to make a decision in. It might be how you present that box is perhaps what I'm saying. I think it's changed a bit, but definitely the deadline, absolutely.
Yes,
still works. Deadline still works incredibly well, right?
Yes.
In fact, I will go that every single promotion I think I've ever written has always had a deadline, right? That has not changed. That is not something that has changed, in the last 5 years or whatever.
Yeah, if you don't put a time frame on something, it will just get put off and put off and put off.
Yeah.
And what I love about the story you shared too, and I've had a lot of these sort of telemarketers, they go, well, when can I call you back? Often I'm like, I don't have time to chat with you. And okay, when can I call you back? Can I call you back next Tuesday or Wednesday? And then they give you two options, right? What time is best, 2 or 4 p.m.? And those that are consistent, which you had with your telemarketer there, they were consistent. They were building that relationship. They were showing that they cared, even if it was just a script. You felt like you were cared for.
Yes.
You felt that they really cared, that they kept reaching out to you. And they probably get a lot of people that just, shut the phone down on them. So they're dealing with a lot of people probably being quite nasty to them as well through the day. I always love to listen to them to see how they're doing things and what they're saying, what the script is. I'm always listening behind that. That consistency, showing you care over time, honoring your word. She said she'll call you back, and she called you back, right? She called, and also it's showing how many touch points people need before they do business with you too. And interesting, the webinar that I had recently, I hadn't done a webinar for quite some time. It was a free webinar. We had about 25 people on, all organic marketing. And so many people said to me, I've been following you for years. I've been following you for years. And often I've gone out in the community and people say, oh, hey, Aldwyn, and they come up like they've known me for years. And I think, who is this person? They say, I've been following you for years. And this is the thing. The more you put yourself out there, you just never know who is seeing your stuff. And this is like on the Sunshine Coast, this happened. I'm on the Gold Coast, twice on the Gold Coast. It's happened in the last few months. People are seeing your stuff, whether they're commenting or whatever. You are being influential, whether you realize it or not, back to that point. And so then it comes down to these foundational principles is how do you want to show up in life? What does being influential mean to you? Because, I think either, people are either happy to see you come into the room or they're happy to see you leave the room, right? Depending on your energy. I like to look at energy and vibration and frequency. I've been getting a lot into the quantum field and how we're showing up in life on an energetic frequency, because it's all scientifically proven by Dr. Hawkins. We're 99.9% energy, frequency, vibration, right? So when we get into gratitude, joy, love, peace, enlightenment, we've got expanded frequency. We're going to attract more people to ourselves. We're going to have more influence, I believe, when we have an expanded frequency. Whereas when we are, in grief, we're suffering, we're going through some really dark patches. Generally, we repel people, although that didn't work that way with my social media post. But then with the one about where I had the blisters and everything, that was quite kind of a negative post, but it was also turning it into positive. And I was saying in that post, I said, where there is breath, there is hope. As crap as you may feel right now, as long as you're still breathing, there is still hope. So it actually turned it around into a really positive message. So what are your thoughts about that, about how you can be more influential showing up with your energy and vibration, the woo-woo stuff?
Well, number one, you're right. You mentioned the word consistency, right? And I've got a really interesting story from one of my clients. I've been worked with him for over 5 years now. Every time they do a campaign, it's, they spend about 40 or 50K. And, so it's not a small investment for them to go to market. And this happened in March, and in their market, things had been really, really flat. And we were having when we were strategizing what we would do, we were having the discussion that, it might just be easier because no one's buying anything in that market, right? And everyone knew no one was buying anything. It was just for a number of reasons, the market just flatlined. And should we just hang on to our money and just wait till things pick up? And I said to them, and it's not just on me, the business owner made a decision, but I said to them in our discussions, I said, look, I can't guarantee that what we create here is going to work, especially in this market. But what I can guarantee is that if you don't send it all and don't show up, you're not going to make any more sales. And I mean, it happened that they did $1 million in sales in that month. Wow. But that was that thing about showing up consistently. When times are tough, and tough times could be economically, energetically, as in you're tired, whatever tough is for you in that moment, you've had several failures or things that haven't worked, whatever it is, that point of consistency is so important. And you mentioned it just before, that consistently showing up. Doesn't mean you've got to do something every day. Well, no, but that will help, right? That is part of consistency. So whatever consistency means for you and your market, if you only go to market every 3 or 4 months, that means you're consistently doing it every 3 or 4 months, if that's your business model. But that consistency thing is huge. And whatever the latest data is, people need 30 or 35 touch points. Those numbers change all the time. One and done hasn't worked for years. So consistency, so people see you and you are top of consciousness in as many media as you can get into, right? That's really important. To spread yourself across a number of media without killing yourself in the process, I might add.
Totally agree. It's about the omnipresence now. Yeah. And it is like, we've known each other 20 years, right? We have massive trust, even though we've only spoken to each other a handful of times in that time. Every time I've seen you, I've always admired you and love what you do. And it's great you can be on the show. Yeah, thank you. And ditto. And that, and that's the thing, it's showing up consistently. And interesting, I was just thinking today, oh my gosh, I'm speaking on stage with Vince Vaughn on Thursday at the Brisbane Convention Centre in front of 3,000 people. And I was sitting there today thinking, oh my gosh, there's a part of me that's really, really nervous about it. But then I think to myself, well, I've been public speaking for 20 years. I've emceed at the Woodford Folk Festival for 15 years in front of 5,000 people. And, I love getting on stage. And yes, there's always that little bit of excitement, a little bit of adrenaline that can happen when no matter how much public speaking I've done over the years, where I've consistently been showing up. I've done Toastmasters, I've done Joanna Martin's work, I've done Speakers Institute, I've done so many different speaker trainings, Sean Clark back in the day, so many different speaker trainings. And yet I feel that this one on Thursday is bringing together a culmination of everything I've learned to now do this talk on stage in front of all these people. And I was thinking, if I hadn't done all of that work to bring me to this point, I would probably be a hell of a lot more nervous than I am right now, right? Yeah. So I think just feeling the nerves, feeling the excitement, it shows that you're growing. It shows you're stepping out of your comfort zone. And I think being an influential marketer, I think that also involves stepping out of your comfort zone consistently and being willing to do things that are going to push you to just be that extra bit, better than maybe, I could fall flat on my face. I could get on stage and I could trip over my heels and I could be a mess, right? However, I would just get up and keep going. And that's the thing, that's the thing about life. Get up and keep going.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point you make. Product placement again. Writing the book, for instance, is a way that has helped me show up more consistently. And, it might sound like, now you've finally cottoned on. It's the second book I've written, but having a book and writing a book is a really important part. From the very least, you can give it to someone as a gift and to influence their life, right?
Yes.
It's that ripple effect as well. Or like you, I can get up on stages and, sell books to a room full of people, which, most of the time I do it, I would sell to 30 or 40% of the room, they'd buy a book. Not that that's the be all and end all, but there's a way of deepening my influence, right? And that is another media. Quick product placement again. That's another media, right? So you mentioned that omnipresent, so multi-channel. How many channels have you got in your business? And when I'm working with a client, I work with them to try and add as many channels as possible. If we're just doing direct mail, well, let's add some email and some SMS. If we're just doing online stuff, let's add some offline stuff. Obviously, it's got to be appropriate and strategic and all those sorts of things, but where can you add a channel? If a book is a channel to add, then go for it. I mean, I would suggest it's one of the best things that I have done from a marketing point of view in terms of influencing people. The opportunities that has created, and even just from the point of view at different events of donating a book as a lucky door prize, that has a huge impact on, one, the winner, but also other people love seeing people win and do well, right? So that what different channels can you add to what you're doing? If you're thinking of writing a book, just do it, right? Do it. And I understand all the fear about that, right? Like, as someone who was a professional writer, for that to turn up into people's hands and for them to go, oh my God, this is rubbish. Oh, horrible, right? A horrible thing to experience. But you don't know until you actually put yourself out there. So I get the fear. I really do. And I get the fear that you are talking about. I mean, I did a calculation the other day, Aldwyn, between teaching and all the podcasts and speaking from stage. I've done over 5,726, I think it was, presentations. And like you, there's still some nerves from time to time, right? But that's just part. I mean, this too shall pass is another really good saying. And feel the fear and do it anyway is another really good saying. So if other ways to influence people, show up in as many different media as you can. And try and enjoy each one of them as well. So a book, for instance, and especially a book that big, there were times it was like, oh gosh, I just want this process to finish, because I just want it out there. That didn't serve me, that kind of thinking. So it's try and enjoy the process, but if you can, get a book done, because it's a really good influential tool.
Yes, I love that. And of course, author is a shortened version of authority, right? Author, it makes you an authority when you're an author. And of course, you'll get more media coverage. You'll have more influence. You'll be able to reach more people when you are an author. And I think even I'm in 20 compilation books at least, right? I seem to be in several every year. And I love the compilation books because you've got 20 authors all putting a chapter in and they're all promoting out to their markets, right? So it's fantastic for marketing. However, for authority building in your niche, it really is best to have your own book. And it's something that I actually haven't released my own book, would you believe, Steve? It's on the card, so watch this space. It will be coming.
Excellent.
Although I'm in all these compilation books. In fact, I'm in one at the moment called Book I Read Volume 2. And everyone wrote a chapter about a book that they read that influenced their life in some major way, or that transformed their life. And so I did a whole chapter about Think and Grow Rich and the 13 principles in Think and Grow Rich and how I've implemented them into my own life. And that's coming out. That's going to be launched actually in a few weeks' time with an American publisher. So that's yet another one. So I love the power of books, and it's a lovely gift for people. It's fantastic. And any way you can leverage yourself, as you said, the omnipresence with multiple media channels. What we're doing right here, Media Queen TV, we've got a video. We're going to turn this into a podcast, audio. We're also going to have the transcript that we can repurpose and do a whole lot of things with as well. So we've got 3 different forms of media coming out of this one show, and we're streaming right now out to 10 different places across all these different multimedia channels, which is it's phenomenal, the technology now. And I must say that's something I'm really grateful for, the changing world of media, to be able to reach so many more people so much easier than once upon a time when it was just a few media channels on radio back in the day, and then TV, the early days of TV, where it was just a few channels that people were being programmed through these few channels, right? And being cast spells, without realizing they were being cast spells. And then they started casting spells on themselves, as you say. So I think there's so much gold here that we've covered, Steve.
I do want to add to just 2 things. This might also have been an article in a magazine, right? Question and answer interview kind of thing. That's how it might have been in the old days, right? The other thing I want to touch on, you mentioned, the word author. Here's the thing, right? Titles convey authority and gravitas, and they always have and they always will. So if you are a whatever you add author to it, there's another title, another piece of your story that gives you credibility and authority. And one of the other things I'll reveal this as well, and because it was I think it was a mistake. I didn't believe it at the time, but when I first went into copywriting and speaking from stage, I didn't speak a lot about my time in schools and deputy principal, because I thought that was my old life.
Right.
I was now in a business environment, not in a school environment. There was no crossover. There was no, they were just different worlds, right? And there was a dividing line, and the two shall never mix. And so I was just a copywriter. What I found out was when I added that I was a head of department and a deputy principal, all of a sudden that gave me more authority. Why? Because titles convey authority. And I think too, there's a thing, we all remember the deputy principal from school back in the day, right? They were scary individuals, right? That we always sort of were fearful of. And so there was a little bit of that, but it was interesting how in hindsight, it was a mistake to hide that part of me and not include that part of me as part of my story.
Yeah, I found it fascinating when you mentioned that. I had no idea. And I think part of that is because we used to have the cane back in the day, right? And while I think, I think there's a place for the cane nowadays, although a lot of people will disagree with me, right?
Oh, yeah. Let's not open that tin of worms, hey?
Yeah, what are your thoughts on the cane? Let us know in the chat. The cane back.
Oh, it never hurt me. No, they shouldn't do that, right? Two ends of the spectrum, yeah.
So yes, that's a whole other rabbit hole we could open with that one. But that was part of that sort of fearing the principal back in the day. We were worried about getting punished for doing things that that we shouldn't do. Whereas now people are getting away with murder. Literally, kids are getting away with murder. So, and that definitely does not help be an influential marketer when you're doing crazy stuff. Although you might get some good publicity around, or maybe bad publicity, but either way. But anyway, back to most people we're helping are business people, right? We're people I deal with, speakers, authors, coaches. These are most of my clients and people I love to work with. And I think giving back to others, I think is very important. Having some kind of social enterprise thing about what you do, I think that helps you become an influential marketer too. What are your thoughts on that, on the charity aspect, tithing?
Yeah, it's a really good, it's a really interesting area to delve into, isn't it? I mean, there is that, I guess, you see a lot of rich people with foundations and giving lots of money to charity. And I think from an energetic point of view, they understand that giving helps the flow of giving and receiving, and I think just I don't disagree with that at all, and I think they just I just like helping people, and so the charity work and the donations and all that sort of thing that I do, I don't specifically use that or leverage that as a part of influence. I just like helping people, and so I will give scholarships to different programs. I will donate food and time and all those sorts of things. But certainly, there's a lot of those good programs around that do convey a lot of social goodwill. The buy one give one, for instance. Paul Dunn's program, and there's a whole lot of others around that. Are really effective at that. So the more you can, I guess, show your humanity of helping others, the more human you seem and the more human you are. And that only helps your, what's going on out in your world in terms of you influencing and marketing. It's not the be all and end all, but I always say that marketing is like, the game of Kaplunk, where you had all those sticks in the tube and the marbles on top, and you pulled the marbles out, the sticks out, and then eventually all the marbles crash down. Yes. Marketing's like that in reverse, right? All the sticks, not one thing just doesn't make everything work magically, but all the little sticks together make everything work really well. And it's a matter of putting more of those sticks, as many of those sticks in, keep your marketing and your influence at a really high level.
And to keep the marbles up, and so you don't lose your marbles, so to speak. It's important
Yeah.
to build a strong foundation at the bottom, right?
Correct.
Rather than starting at the top, you got to start at the bottom and work your way up.
Yeah.
And one stick at a time. And that's the thing. A lot of people get overwhelmed with marketing as well. They think, oh my gosh, there's so much to do. How do we manage social media? How do we do this? They get really lost in it. And there is this big issue now with overwhelm. And so this is why it's even more important to leverage yourself by getting out to more media like we're doing here, because now people will watch this replay. We're doing this interview once, and so many people, hundreds, thousands of people will watch this interview now after this. So we don't have to repeat ourselves that many times again, right? And we're building connection with the audience. We're giving great value, right? All these things. This is a great marketing exercise right here, what we're doing.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, totally. And you're right. There is lots to do. But again, going back to almost where we started with AI, that's where AI can help, right? AI can shorten and do lots of different things to help with that marketing process. Pure, beautiful writing may not be one of them at the moment, but there's a lot of things that you can do using AI to help with that.
Absolutely. And it's great that you're embracing that. Most people I know are embracing AI to some aspect. However, I just encourage you to also share from the heart wherever possible, and to tweak the copy that is coming from the platforms, the AI platforms, so that we have more of your humanity showing through.
Well, here's a telltale sign, Aldwyn, with AI copy. You'll see a number of LinkedIn posts, for instance, the top 9 things in whatever it might be. You'll see that they're all set out exactly the same. All paragraphs are exactly the same. You'll see there's no line left between any. It's just number 1, whatever the thing is, then a paragraph that big. Number 2, no line, and they're all the same, right? And one of the things I coach people on with writing is, that principle of make your writing seem like a conversation. And when you think about it, a conversation might have 1 or 2 short sentences. Then there'll be a longer one where you are explaining more and going into more detail. Short one, a linking sentence, a short one. And so that's what AI, if you just copy and paste from AI, it won't do. It's all the same, right? All the same kind of length of paragraph. So it's an easy one to spot without even reading it. You can go, oh, that's just copied from ChatGTP. So just be aware of that. And it's also the software that you can put in to find out whether it's what the level of AI is. So Scribble, was it Scribble or whatever that one is? I can't remember. Anyway,
well, it's interesting. Just today, actually, I was talking to someone who I'm going to be interviewing. We're doing a special webinar about podcasting actually coming up, and I was chatting with someone about that. And because I said, "Oh, what do you want to call the show?" And they actually sent me back a whole list of potential titles, and I checked the email. I said, "Now you did this on ChatGPT, didn't you?" And he said, "Yes, I did." And so what we did is we looked at all these titles, and then we mishmashed little bits from here and there, and we created a great title from it. So it was a great way to sort of brainstorm some ideas, and then we came up with the title for this webinar. But I could tell straight away, here we go, it's ChatGPT.
Well, you saw it, then you felt it, right?
Yes.
But if that's where it stops, I think you lose a big proportion of the market, right? Because they feel something. I think Dan Kennedy had this saying, vaguely, unconsciously uncomfortable feeling. When people read copy that isn't quite right, they get a vaguely, unconsciously uncomfortable feeling. And pure just AI copied out gives you that, right? But you make a good point, because that base document that they would have spat out, that's exactly what I will do. I like the combination of those 2 words there, and then combined with those 4 words there. And if I take that word from, all of a sudden I've got a really nice headline, right? But I don't just copy the whole thing out and then present that as the fait accompli or the completed thing, right? Because that won't work. But what I found is that AI is really good for creating word connections or idea connections that I hadn't thought of yet. That's one way that I find it really useful.
Yes, absolutely. Well, we could chat forever. We've already been chatting an hour and a half here, Steve.
No way. Oh, wow. Yeah, too.
This is what happens when you get in flow and in the zone. See, this is what it looks like, my friends, when you're loving what you do. Now, I'm sure there's people who would love to work with you, Steve. So how can they do that? How can they get in touch with you?
Sure. You can just email me, steve@symmetrymarketing.com.au. We'll put that in the details here. people always ask, what about quick product placement? What about your book? If you want to buy the book, the hard copy, I would love to sign a copy of it for you. Go to theinfluentialmarketer.org. And I will ship that out to you. The other way, if you would like some free resource to help you with your email subject lines and your headlines, I've got what I call the copywriting compendium, and there'll be a link in the information as well that Aldwyn will put in there, and that's got 52 different ways to craft headlines and email subject lines with examples in there. And that's a Google Doc, so it's easy for you to copy and paste, and you have my permission to massage those, use them in your copy as well. So yeah, a copywriting compendium with 52 email and headline ideas to boost your response, or the book, theinfluentialmarketer.org, or if you need to email me, that will be in there as well. So yeah, there's 3 ways.
Wonderful. Fantastic. So check all of that out, theinfluentialmarketer.org. So for those on the podcast, I'll spell that one out, THEINFLUENTIAL, and marketer is MARKETER.org. Robert is saying, amazing chat, my dear friends. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Appreciate that,
Yeah, Shwadab Kumar is with us. Hello, Shwadab. Good to see that. He's sending us some love. Oh, that's lovely.
Thank you, Shwadab. Thank you.
We've got Laura Fernanda Arango. Good to see you, Laura. Thank you, Frank, Darlene, Isaac, Paul, John. Thank you so much on Instagram and all those joining us here on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, X. Thank you so much also. And for those who want to connect with me, you can find all my links at a linktree/Aldwyn. So just go to linktr.ee/Aldwyn, and you'll find a whole lot of free resources in there as well, different ways you can market yourself, be seen, heard, and known amongst the noise. Also, every month we have a global good news challenge where you can share gratitude and good news, and you will feel amazing. Plus, you will be helping to decrease depression and suicide rates by getting into gratitude. And you'll become more of an influential marketer because you will be expanding your energy field, and you'll be bringing in lots of amazing people, magnetizing
spelling different things, right?
Yes.
Spelling more gratitude into your life. Yeah.
Absolutely. Spelling more gratitude. And this is why I love the idea of Thanksgiving, and actually, giving thanks for food before we eat food. Like, gratitude really is a practice we can bring in every day with the small things in life, 100%. That we often take for granted. How often do we take our food for granted, and how about just, making some time, just taking a moment and just being grateful for your food before you eat every day. That could be a great practice to start bringing on board. So check that out there. Subscribe to the Media Queen TV, Aldwyn Altuney Media Queen TV YouTube channel. You'll see over 1,200 videos on there. And I've also put some of my favorite comedies in there as well, some little comedy snippets. That's another great way to expand your energy and to attract more amazingness into your life, is by having a good laugh. So you go over there, you'll see some of my favorites. Stop It. You might know the Stop It video, Steve. I put the Stop It video.
Yeah,
the Stop It
classic,
video.
isn't it? Yeah.
I have seen the Stop It video. I must have seen it at least 50 times, and every time it just cracks me up.
It's so simple yet so hard to do, right? It's so simple.
It's kind of like marketing, isn't it? It's kind of like marketing. It's so simple, yet for a lot of people it's so hard to do.
Yeah.
And this is where you need experts like Steve and myself. So reach out through those links there if you are stuck in any way, and I'm sure we'll be able to help you. Any final words, Steve, before we wrap up today?
The big thing is everything that happens in your outside world starts with here, right? So again, be really mind aware about what you are saying to yourself, because all of us have that little guy, that little girl in our head that wants to keep us small and safe. And if you're going to influence more people, then you might need to change the voice of that little guy or girl, to spell different things into your life. And I think that's really, really important, because we can't connect heart to heart, I don't believe, if we've got rubbish going on up here. It makes it really hard, right, to do it.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you and this is where, to overcome any nerves around putting yourself out there, it's important to go from head to heart as well. And I always share this with my clients, to overcome nerves being on camera or being in the media. And I'm sharing with myself too. I remind myself this often, and this nervousness I'm feeling about speaking on stage with Vince Vaughn on Thursday. I know that when I get there, I'll be fine, because I'll just center myself. I'll take a few deep breaths. I'll get into state, and I'll just do my thing, and it'll be over before I know it. And that'll be that. And then it'll be okay. What's the next challenge, right? What's the next thing we can take on here to have more influence?
Yeah, it's an interesting one too, Alden. I just want to share this as well. It can be frustrating to think, well, I've done that so many times, or I know how to do this, yet your humanity can still get in the way, as it were, and you can still feel nerves or hesitation or whatever it might be. And you think, well, I've already dealt with that. I've already worked on that. Here's the thing, right? I use the analogy of, well, you don't just shower once in your life. I've already showered today. I've already showered this year, this month, right? We shower every day. Oh, I've already cooked this year, only once. We don't just cook. We do things daily in our everyday 3D life, like showering and cooking and paying bills and things. Why would we expect that things within our emotional life or within our minds are any different, right? We still have to shower every day by taking, I guess, note of and being aware and being manual with how we show up in the world. I think that's really important, because that's often missed in a lot of the self-development and self-help things, right? Is that it's just a fact of life that we shower every darn day and we cook at least once a day.
Yes, exactly. And you don't just go to the gym once and suddenly
I'm fine now.
Yeah, you're fine now. Exactly. And it's the same with this whole journey of being an influential marketer and being great in business or in life. It's a consistent daily practice, like brushing your teeth, like all of that. So important. And this is where all successful people I know, all great coaches have coaches, because they know that they can't do it on their own. If they want to, well, you can, but it'll take you 10 times longer. If you want to fast track your success, you want to learn from what other people have done, and then put some of that in place in your life. Get great mentors and people around you, and notice what your environment's like too. Make sure you're hanging out in a great environment. This is part of why I go to so many courses and why I do so much work on myself and so much personal development. And I want to hang out with people who are up to big things in life, because your environment.
You've done more than one personal development thing?
Yes, just slightly more than one. Probably actually lost count how many. And I I've invested over $500,000 in my business personal development, and I keep investing. I've got multiple mentors at any one time. I think it's crucial, and I know you have too, Steve.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, very important. So hang in there, my friends. If you're feeling a bit low right now, you're feeling a bit overwhelmed with the world of media, don't worry about it. In fact, tonight on the Media Mavens show, we're going to be tackling that topic, how to overcome overload and overwhelm. Okay, so if you're feeling that, then hop along 8 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time in a few hours with my co-host Kirsten Linartz from Germany. We're going to be covering that on Media Mavens show for anyone feeling that. But the thing is, 50% of anything you do is just starting. Right. So even if you just take some action on some things we've said here, or one or two things today, and go out and start to put it in place, you'll start to see that the momentum will build and you'll keep it going. Right. And this is where having a strong vision and purpose and mission and all that sort of thing, I think, is so important, to know where you're wanting to go with your marketing. Why do you want to be an influential marketer? Right. That's not for everyone. Right. Not for everyone.
The job's a lot easier.
Yeah. It's a lot easier. And even
that has its baggage.
Yeah, and even in a job, you're still influencing the people in your immediate vicinity, right? You're influencing your family. It's just a matter of, how big do you want to go with this? How much impact do you want to make in the world? Do you want to be one of the 90% who die with regrets? That's the stats. 90% of people die with regrets. My wish is that you're not one of those people. And I think the more that you can step up and be an influential marketer, the more you're going to enjoy your life as well. Final thoughts, Steve? Final thoughts.
So true. If it is a tough time, this too shall pass.
Yes.
As the same as night finishes, day turns up. It mightn't feel like that in the moment, but it's also a good one to remember, that this too shall pass.
Yes. Love that. And as a girlfriend said to me, she said, it's always darkest before the dawn. And the stars shine brightest in a dark sky. Right. So again, it's the yin yang of life, and it's enjoying and embracing all of it, my friends. Thank you so much for tuning in today. For those who are watching us live, thank you, Steve. It's been amazing chatting with you. Thank you so much for this fantastic interview here today. Reach out to Steve. Connect with him on that link. Once again, theinfluentialmarketer.org. You'll find all my links as well on Linktree/Aldwyn. linktr.ee/Aldwyn. Sending you much love today. And as Gandhi says, be the change you wish to see in the world. Thank you so much for joining us here on Media Queen TV. Thank you once again, Steve, and have a beautiful night or day if you're on the other side of the world. We'll see you again next time. Bye for now.